Welcome to the Impact of Drones webinar. This is Mickey Shields with the Iowa League of Cities, and we thank you for joining us for another edition in our 2017 webinar series. We hope you find this webinar helpful, along with other options in this year's series. You can also access archived webinars from previous webinar series on the League website at www.iowaleague.org. Before we begin, I want to first thank the League's endorsed programs for their continued support of city governments and the League. I also want to thank our sponsors of this webinar, Bolton & Mink and Mid-American Energy. We appreciate their involvement with the League and for helping cities across the state find successful solutions. To begin, I would like to go over a couple things about the webinar. The League's webinars are free to access and view on our website at any time. Any handouts are available on the website as well. Finally, please send any questions to the League and we will be happy to answer them. Joining me for the webinar is Chris Luring, City Administrator and Clerk for the City of Parkersburg. Chris has researched the impact of drones on cities, as well as how city governments can use drones for city purposes. Chris, please take it away.
Thank you, Mickey, for having me here today, and thank you to the Iowa League of Cities for letting me participate in this webinar series and describing the impact of drones on cities throughout Iowa, as well as counties, and how it's going to impact all of us more into the future. As you can see in the screen that you're looking at right now, Parkersburg has utilized a drone, or the use of a drone, for a variety of purposes. One was to survey a sports complex, and the other was to use it to capture the tornado recovery efforts that have taken place here in Parkersburg. But drones can be used for a variety of purposes, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Before I move into a more descriptive analysis of drones, I wanted everybody to understand first, drones go by a variety of different terms. UAS, which can be classified as unmanned aerial systems. UAS also can be classified as unmanned aircraft systems. RC, radio controlled aircraft, and UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. As you can see, the picture on your bottom right-hand screen, that is actually a picture of a modern-day drone, which is the size of a mosquito as it sits on a person's fingertips. So the RC, or the radio-controlled aircraft that we have had in the past, are definitely morphing into something way more complicated and even the size of a mosquito. As we continue to talk about the impact of drones, it's important that we all know what drones look like, what they may look like, and even what we can't imagine they'll look like into the future. But here's a few pictures of drones that are in Iowa that are being marketed currently. Obviously, the one at the bottom in the middle is a military type of drone, which hopefully none of us have to see. But the other drones, the top left-hand corner illustrates what one looks like for agricultural purposes, hobby purposes in the middle, and there again, more investigative purposes at the bottom right. It's the size of a mosquito, maybe something that none of us will ever see. But regardless, we need to know what they look like and what they're changing to be in the future. Drones are used in a variety of applications. The main three are the top three: hobby or recreational, business or commercial, and then governmental, which can be used for fire, police, disaster recovery, things such as that. I added the additional two at the bottom, farm and ranch, and military, for a couple purposes. We may not see them being used as much here in cities, but the counties obviously will see more of the farm and ranch usage, and hopefully none of us again have to participate in the military drone usage, but they still exist regardless. When it comes to farm and ranch, it is recommended that farmers or ranchers contact the FAA to see whether or not their usage constitutes commercial or recreational use. I'm not going to make any assumptions or tell anybody what my opinion is, but I highly suggest that if anybody comes to you and has a question whether or not their drone is being used for hobby or recreational, they say they're going to use it on a farm, that they contact the FAA directly to get more clarification on that usage. But regardless, the top three are primarily the usages that we're going to see here in cities and counties throughout Iowa. Drones, and this is one of the problems, and one of the problems that many people talk about in terms of the usage of them, is personal privacy. So this is a great quote by Simon Rice. A drone in itself is not processing any personal data until you strap a video camera to it. It's only really when you start strapping on sensors, whether that's cameras, thermal imaging, or whatever it might be, then the privacy implications start to rise. And from my experiences and from my research, privacy implications really are the primary concern of people and folks that are going to be using any type of drone or UAS system. So it's important to self-manage and govern yourself accordingly so that we don't wreck it for everybody. Drones, other potential problems that exist today primarily, not following established rules. Many times people are trying to use it for commercial, but saying they're using it for hobby purposes. Really, the rules are not that intrusive or extensive to use it commercially. So I just recommend everybody, if you have any questions whatsoever on whether it constitutes recreational use or commercial use, just go through the certification process for commercial use and be done with it. It's not that difficult. Not registering your unmanned aircraft is also a big problem. Registering your aircraft is pretty much required for any drone that weighs more than a half a pound or 0.55 pounds. So it's important that people register their unmanned aircraft and do that. It's very, very easy, once again, online. Other potential problems is the inability to contact the airport or control towers. For commercial users, there's an online web portal available. But for hobby users, it's a little bit more difficult because people many times don't know how to contact the control tower. So my suggestion is research that long before you plan on using it, so that you have a readily available contact number in your area and you know how to contact the airport in question. Other issues, of course, again, are privacy issues, the legal issues that are occurring, and there again, it's not that widespread because pretty much people are self-governing and using common sense. But there's also national security issues and social gathering issues that are taking place also. You cannot fly drones over sporting events, and it's not recommended that you take pictures or that you fly over social gatherings for the problems regarding safety. So I Fly Safe is that emblem in the bottom right-hand corner, and I highly recommend people fly safe and use common sense and know the rules of the game. Drone usage, what you need to know. For the most part, again, you have recreational users, business users, and public entities, and all three have their own individual rules and regulations that govern each different use. Again, the Iowa Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, has very good websites. Their people are very easy to talk to, and there's a lot of Q&A answers online that are readily accessible. There's really no excuse to not know the rules that exist. Once again, do I register my unmanned aircraft? Yes, you need to register your aircraft if it weighs between 0.55 pounds and up to 55 pounds. And that's everybody, commercial, governmental, or recreational. And it's very important that we all abide by those rules and just register the aircraft. It's not that complicated, it's not that difficult, and pretty much every aircraft has to be registered because of the weight requirements that exist. What else do you need to know? These are just some graphs, some charts that are readily available online again. I'm going to go through them. In the first column, you have flying for fun. When it comes to pilot requirements, you have no pilot requirements for a hobbyist or a recreational user. However, if you fly commercially or governmentally, I recommend, and in regards to commercial usage, if you are going to fly, you have to have a remote airman certificate. You must be 16 years old, and you must pass TSA vetting. Obviously, because of the concerns regarding terrorism, the TSA, and none of us want anybody that should not be flying a drone, flying one for surveillance or for any other type of adverse or negative use. Regarding aircraft requirements, as I already went over, you must be registered if you're over 0.55 pounds. When in doubt, just register. It's not that difficult. In regards to commercial use, must be less than 55 pounds. It must be registered if over 0.55 pounds. Again, you can register online, very easy. You must undergo a pre-flight check to ensure UAS is in condition for safe operation, and I also recommend that for recreational users as well. It's not that complicated to go through the pre-flight check, and for the safety of you and anybody that might be in the area, it's just a good idea to do it. In regards to location requirements, by law, if you're going to fly for fun, you must stay outside of 5 miles from airports without prior notification to airport and air traffic control. Once again, if you're going to go within 5 miles, you need to contact your airport or air traffic control in that area prior to use. And again, research that because it's not as easy, and all airports have different rules or different operations at this point in time. If you are a commercial user, you must stay in Class G airspace, which is uncontrolled airspace. And if you fly within an airport, again within 5 miles, you have to contact that air traffic control tower, and you do that through an online web portal. You do not call them or email them. All commercial users are required to use the online web portal that's available online at www.faa.gov. Moving on for more what you need to know. Operating rules for flying while fun. You must always yield the right of way to manned aircraft. You must always keep the aircraft in sight, a visual line of sight, to you, the operator. UAS must be under 55 pounds once again. You must follow community-based safety guidelines. There's very few in the state of Iowa, and I hope that stays the way so we don't have a hodgepodge of different rules existing for different entities. Regardless, you must notify the airport and air traffic control tower before flying within 5 miles of an airport once again. You're going to hear me say certain things in my presentation today many times. Hopefully that highlights the importance of following the rules and doing what's right as a UAS operator. When you're flying commercially, the operating rules. You must, again, keep the aircraft in sight. You must fly under 400 feet. You must fly during the day. You must fly at or below 100 miles per hour. You must yield the right of way to the manned aircraft. You must not fly over people and must not fly from a moving vehicle. Now, if you notice the asterisk next to those rules for commercial users, the asterisk is there because you can request a waiver for those rules if you have a need. And again, you do that through the FAA website, and you can request a waiver for anything that is an asterisk. Moving on again, example applications for flying while fun, educational or recreational flying only. Commercially, flying for commercial use, providing aerial surveying or photography services is an example. Flying incidental to a business, doing roof inspections or real estate photography is also another example. And then the legal or regulatory basis is at the bottom of that page, if anybody wanted to look up and research more for your own benefit. What else you need to know? The airports in Iowa. Many times we think, well, I'm not within 5 miles of an airport. Well, really, are you? Is the question you need to ask yourself. The map of Iowa on your right is the location and a 5-mile radius around every airport known in 2016 to exist in Iowa. So many UAS operators are going to be impacted by the presence of an airport within 5 miles of their location. The nice thing is the FAA has created an amazing smartphone app for users before you fly, smartphone app. It's easy to use in order to determine whether there are any restrictions or requirements in effect at the location where you want to fly. Highly recommend it for any UAS operator. Doesn't matter if you're a recreational user, a commercial user, or a government entity. It's important that you are familiar with the FAA rules and regulations, and that smartphone app is an amazing thing that is very easy to use, that can be used by all users in a very, very simple fashion. What else do you need to know? I Fly Safe is a slogan for the FAA's rules regarding UAS operation. All drones are aircraft, even the ones at a toy store, and all drones can cause damage to flying aircraft, manned aircraft, especially those in Iowa regarding agricultural use. So it's very important that we practice safety and are good stewards and good examples of the right way to fly. So when I fly a drone, I am a pilot. Before I fly, I always go through my pre-flight checklist. I regularly check the safety guidelines at faa.gov/UAS. And it's important to note that this presentation is being presented on April 11th, 2017, and the rules could change tomorrow. So I highly recommend you use the smartphone app and use the FAA website and use the Iowa Department of Transportation's website to have any answers to your questions answered in the most up-to-date, accurate way. The pre-flight checklist is very simple. Again, it's required for commercial users. I highly recommend it for all users. The checklist includes, I fly below 400 feet. I always fly within a visual line of sight. I'm aware of FAA airspace requirements. I never fly over groups of people. I never fly over stadiums and sporting events. I never fly within 5 miles of an airport without first contacting air traffic control and airport authorities. Again, commercial users do that through an online web portal. I never fly near emergency response efforts such as fires. And this has been a concern in the state of Iowa and throughout the nation in regards to fires that are existing and news stations or hobbyists using the drones and actually getting in the way of the firefighting efforts. Carrying on, I never fly near other aircraft, and I never fly under the influence. And that is your pre-flight checklist. Not very complicated. What else do you need to know? There's great information out there for law enforcement officers. I am a city administrator and a city clerk, but I also am a former police chief and current law enforcement officer myself. So I think it's important to make sure that your law enforcement officers and your law enforcement agencies have the most up-to-date basic information regarding the illegal use of drones. And illegal uses of drone includes reckless endangerment, criminal mischief, voyeurism, inciting violence, and privacy issues are probably the foremost issue that law enforcement is going to come into contact with. And those are some of the most difficult issues. Regardless, when law enforcement officers come into contact with a possible illegal action done by a drone, it's important to use the drone acronym, directing attention outward and upward, reporting the incident to the FAA Regional Operations Center, and I will give you the phone number of the next slide, observing the UAS or drone and maintaining visibility of it. If you can track it down and wait for it to land, battery life is typically 20 to 30 minutes on these devices, so usually you can track down the operator. Noticing the features, identifying the type of device, its size, shape, color, and payload. I recommend that people try to get a picture of a drone possibly operating illegally. Most UAS operators are aware of each other's equipment, and you possibly can verify the identity of equipment being used by asking other operators in the area. For the most part, these operators are self-governing, and they do not want to have a problem with local law enforcement banning their use or prohibiting their use in any way. So a lot of times you'll get help. And then executing appropriate police action, maintaining a safe environment for the public and first responders, conducting an interview if you can, and then documenting all details of the event per guidance provided by the FAA. Again, getting statements from witnesses or people being victimized by it is important. On the back of these cards, which are available on the FAA website, it gives additional information. Again, documenting and providing the following information to the FAA is important. And then the number for Iowa is the Central Regional Operations Center in Iowa, or in Kansas actually, for Iowa. And the phone number for that office is 817-222-5006. Again, law enforcement hopefully is able to work with the FAA and work with the drone operator community to make sure that people are operating in the confines of the law and in the confines of personal privacy issues. What else do you need to know? Well, drones can definitely be used for public and governmental use. And there's lots of different things that the use can pertain to. A lot of times we think about law enforcement using them. I look at them being used for search and rescue, and I have an example of that I'm going to use. We also could use drones to surveil a possible crime scene that has taken place and have better pictures of the area for court. But it's important that police use drones in confines of the law, and most police departments and police agencies are aware of the confines, the need for warrants prior to use if necessary, and the other rules and regulations regarding drone use. But other uses that cities in Iowa and throughout the United States have used drones for: water tower inspections, including antenna sometimes on top of these water towers, project inspections. For instance, we have a project that was inspected or that was videotaped last year for marketing or for publication purposes, sewer inspections, marketing and education, and disaster recovery. I look back on the 2008 tornado that went through Parkersburg and affected New Hartford and other communities in Iowa, and I can find a variety of different ways that we could have used drones had they existed back in 2008 for our disaster recovery efforts. I think it'd be amazing to be able to go back and do that. But regardless, you're going to see more drone usage, more UAS usage in regards to disaster recoveries. So there are many cities in Iowa and counties in Iowa that have used drones for governmental purposes. Cities include the city of Ames, have documented progress of a new water treatment plant. City of Fort Dodge used a drone in the search for a couple of lost children, possibly near the Des Moines River a year or two ago. They ended up finding the children at a friend's house or something where the drone really wasn't needed. But regardless, they were able to eliminate possibilities where really trying to get there on foot was difficult. The city of Perry has assisted the smoke testing of their sanitary sewer mains by using a drone flying overhead. And the city of Parkersburg, again, we've used it to highlight the construction progress of a sports complex and to survey tornado recovery efforts. So pretty fantastic uses, and I think cities throughout Iowa and counties throughout Iowa are going to be using these pieces of equipment very, very easily in the future to document certain things for marketing purposes. And then there again, in the event of a tragedy or something terrible happening, like a natural disaster. So there's two options for a governmental entity to use drones. You can follow the same requirements and operating rules for business users, which is Part 107. Again, not very difficult. The requirements are pretty simple and straightforward. Or governmental entities can apply for a blanket public certification of authorization. They require flights at or below 400 feet in Class G uncontrolled airspaces, self-certification of the UAS pilot, and there is the ability to obtain a COA, a certification of authorization, under special circumstances. The important thing regarding this slide is that these drones for governmental entities in public use has to be used for governmental functions. They can't be used, you can't have a certification of authorization and use it as your personal use and then your commercial use and then go back and use it for governmental functions. That's not allowed. So for governmental functions, you can use one or two, either option, but it's important that governmental entities use it for governmental functions only. In conclusion, drone technology is evolving at an unprecedented pace. As you saw at the beginning of this presentation, drones come in all shapes and sizes, from 100 feet long all the way down to a mosquito. It's important that we all educate our communities by promoting the safe, effective use of drone technology. And we encourage all users to follow established safety guidelines. It's important that we follow established safety guidelines and be good examples. Cities and counties should understand that drone compliance is regulated by the Federal Aviation Administration. It is also recommended that cities and counties not regulate drone usage. And the important thing there is, again, not creating a hodgepodge network of different rules and different functions for people all over the state of Iowa and all over the United States. It's recommended that there's one set of standards and that those standards are followed and easier for everybody to follow. It's also important that prior to using for governmental purposes, cities and counties adopt a public use policy and make sure their insurance policy covers the use of drones by the entity. In the event something bad would happen, it's important that insurance coverage is available to make sure you take care of any problems that may exist. Additional guidance, you can always contact the Iowa Department of Transportation, Office of Aviation at 515-239-1691. I give a thank you out to the Office of Aviation for helping me with this presentation today and providing great information for everybody that's able to watch this and wants more information on it. Again, in the event the rules change, the Office of Aviation will stay up to date and provide the most up-to-date information at their website online. Also, you can get additional guidance from the Federal Aviation Administration Flight Standards District Office in Ankeny. Their phone number is 515-289-3840. The Flight Standards District Office, again, is a great resource for UAS and drone operators to ask their questions and get good answers to those questions. And once again, the sources include today's presentation, the Iowa Department of Transportation at that website below, the Federal Aviation Administration at their website, and a research project that I took part with for my fellow Drake University MPA students, and an article that we wrote regarding drone usage, managing this technology awakening. So I thank everybody for participating today. Thank you, Mickey, for making this available to the public and keeping everybody up to date on this very, very important topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris, for the great information on drones and how cities can best use them. If anybody's interested in the research that Chris mentioned regarding the Drake MPA class and the article that we included in Cityscape magazine, please let me know. I'll be happy to share that with anyone that's interested. On behalf of the League, I would like to thank all the viewers of the webinar, and I encourage you to contact us with any questions you might have in the future. Thanks.